Well, out of respect for everyone's time, we'll get going. And we'd like to make this last just an hour. So thank you for your time this morning. Again, I'm Jane Conover, the president of the Community Foundation. I am really so happy to be here today with all of you who are committed to making our community a place where everyone has the opportunity to thrive. Thank you for your interest in this new racial equity program. The agenda for today is really, I'm just going to give a brief overview of the Community Foundation for those who are not familiar with us. Then I'll turn it over to the chair of the Racial Equity Committee, Lisa Kennedy, to talk about the goals of the grant program and what they're looking for. And then we'll turn it over to Roth Prep, our grants program associate, who will walk through the logistics on how to submit a grant application. Today, we're here to give you the overview, but also want to answer any of your questions that you have. So please put your questions in the chat, and we will get to them throughout the webinar. There'll also be contact information provided for questions you might have after today. So a bit about the Community Foundation. Our vision is that your county is a growing, prosperous, and united community where everyone has opportunities to thrive. You'll see among our values is diversity, equity, and inclusion. We are continuing to define how diversity, equity, inclusion is woven into our work. That means, how do we show up in the community? How will we award our grants? And how are we including diverse voices around our decision-making table? Briefly, what we do is we are recruiting donors, mostly from York County, to create endowed funds with us. So what we do is we invest those gifts so that they grow, so that each year we then distribute a portion of the funds in grants to the charities and the causes that those donors cared about. The idea is that the principal gift remains, and we grant away the earnings so that the grants are available year after year. We call it a perpetual fund. Some of our grants address community needs like children's well-being, stronger neighborhoods, workforce development, and the environment. And today we will talk about this new racial equity fund that we created with our own dollars, and we are asking others to donate to. And as of today, many people and organizations have already contributed to the Racial Equity Fund. Why start a Racial Equity Fund? Well, the Community Foundation knows that our vision for York County will never become a reality if members of our community do not have equal access to opportunities. We realize that the color of one's skin should not determine what opportunities they have for quality education, housing, healthcare, or jobs. And we believe that all York Countyans should be able to live without fear of discrimination, harassment, and violence. The donors who have put their money in the Community Foundation did so because they wanted to make York a better place. We are focused on making York County a vibrant place to live for all. And that means we have a responsibility to end racial disparities that are holding people back. While most of our grant dollars already go to help those in the community who are marginalized, a few years ago, we started tracking our community level data by race, household income, educational attainment, those kinds of things. That's when we became more intentional about using our voice and our resources towards addressing racial disparities. We started with a grant to the YCCF of York to hire a diversity director, and we gave money to the History Center to make sure that the new museum they were developing included stories of York's diverse population. We helped start the Confronting Racism Coalition and support its efforts, and we support Latinos Unidos. We also began to diversify our board of directors and volunteer committees. These are just a few examples of what we've been doing over the last couple of years. We know there is more to do, and that we needed to do more to encourage our community to address racial equity. That's why we created the Racial Equity Grant Fund, so that it explicitly focused on advancing racial equity in York County. We know that we don't have all the answers, and we know that the people most impacted by a problem often have the best solutions. So we have made sure that people of color were designing the Racial Equity Grant Program, and they will select the grantees. We are really grateful for all of the committee members for the time and the thought and the care that they put into designing this grant program. So special thanks to Lisa Kennedy for leading the effort. I met Lisa at the first Confronting Racism meeting about 3 years ago. I recruited her to our grants distribution committee, and she just joined our board of directors. So pleased to have her on the team and all of the committee members for helping launch this program. I'll now turn it over to Lisa Kennedy for the rest of the program.
Thank you, Jane, and good morning, everyone, and welcome. So glad to see everyone here this morning. What I'd first like to do is introduce the rest of the team in the committee to you that has been working diligently the last several months to bring forward the vision of the foundation and this collective work around racial equity. And so I'm so grateful to each one of these individuals for the time and dedication that they've given to this work, for their continued support along the way, and the efforts that they put into everything they do within this community. They are a group of people who are extremely busy with many hands in various areas within our communities, and their impact of their work shows through their dedication and determination. So first, I'd like to recognize Mr. Timothy Warfield, who unfortunately could not be here with us today, but Mr. Tim is also a board member of the foundation as well. Natalie Cologne Gunderson is here today as well. And I'm going to ask, as I call your name and introduce you, if you would just take a minute to open your mic and greet the group that is with us today and share anything that you'd like to do. Natalie.
Good morning, everyone. Again, Natalie Cologne Gunderson, and I just wanted to say good morning, and we're excited to be a part of this process together and see all the good that is going to come from it for York County as a whole. So thanks for being here.
Thank you, Natalie. Jamil Alexander, and Jamil has been a huge part of this group as well. And Rolf, has Jamil joined us yet this morning?
No, I do not see him on the call yet.
Okay, thank you. Just let me know if he jumps in later. We'll have him introduce himself. Next up is Jose Santiago, and Jose has been a huge part of the process as well as the others, and is doing some great work within our community. Jose, would you like to share a greeting this morning, please?
Good morning, everyone. I want to thank everybody for being here today. This is an amazing opportunity for our community, and I hope that people take advantage of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jose. Next up is Kimberly Brister.
Good morning, everybody. I am so excited to hear so many individuals decided to join us today and learn about this new fund. I think it's going to be actually life-changing for our communities, and I'm just excited for each of you to learn about this opportunity.
Thank you, Kim. And last but certainly not least, Mr. Loris Penn.
Good morning, everyone. I'm also very excited to be here as well. As an educational consultant and former educator, I truly believe the answer is in the room, and collectively, York City and York County, if we work together as a team, we can in fact close that gap. So welcome, and I'm excited about the process. And welcome to change. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you so much, Dolores. I appreciate it. This is a group that we have been meeting regularly for the last 5 or 6 months, and we've also been doing a lot of work via email. And so this is the reason why we were ready to present this opportunity for the community and share it with you and walk you through briefly through the process of how things will work for the racial equity grant. Rolf, if you would advance, please. Thank you. So shifting the paradigm of equitable opportunities, and that just really relates to what this process really is. And first of all, giving thanks to the foundation for the courageous effort that they put forth in hosting many crucial conversations with community stakeholders from diverse backgrounds, to hear from them, to learn from them, to hear what's missing, to learn a little bit more about things that they think that they're doing right, and where collectively we could come together to begin to bridge an entire community, including the county. And so we thank them for the opportunity being presented today and shifting the paradigm in the work that we're doing. So taking a look at the Racial Equity Fund is really just saying that this is a project that is intentionally going to be supporting communities of color, and also really taking a look at how we can impact the issues of racism and inequality within our community. And so this is just one of the many efforts that the foundation has boldly taken a stance on. And I am personally unaware of any other organization who is taking this step out to say that they really want to stand behind the work of racial equity. And not only are they standing behind it, they're making dollars available to the community to be able to start through this process. So with the Racial Equity Fund, we are offering currently, starting today, the application process opens. Grants of up to $10,000 for each project for grantees to be seeking. Areas identified would be education and job readiness, things related to criminal justice system, community leadership and development, income and wealth creation within communities of color, racial and cultural education, and health and wellness within communities of color. All of those areas are very broad topic areas. So that doesn't mean that your application that you may want to apply for has to specifically fit under one umbrella. It may, in fact, cross over into one or more of these areas listed below, but those are just the 6 areas that are the broad categories that we are intentionally looking to impact within communities of color and supporting the work of racial equity. Wrong? So how does this process work? So there's an application process that all grantees must complete, and there's the link in the website. And I do want to mention that this PowerPoint will be available on the Community Foundation's website, so you will be able to access this information as well at your leisure. And so there's a link there for you to access the grant application. Should anyone have questions or want support around understanding of their idea that they would like to apply for, having questions about whether they feel their particular grant idea fits within those 6 categories, you're welcome to email us at the email address provided there. Specifically, if you have questions for anyone on the Racial Equity Committee. Should you have questions around technical support regarding the website, that's accessing the application, creating an account, can't find information, need support in any areas as it relates to the website, please feel free to reach out to Roth, and his email is there and available for you too as well. And they will provide support for you walking through the application, or even finding the application on the website should you have issues with that. You want to keep in mind that applications are open until October 8th. That is the deadline for receiving of applications. So you want to definitely mark that down. And at the end of that process, the committee, which is the group that we just introduced to you, will be following up with any questions should that be necessary based on all of the grant applications received. There will be a couple of days within our timeline that we will reach out to you should we have any questions. And in some cases, we might even ask for Zoom meetings with grantees if we have specific questions or want to really learn more about the vision that you are applying for. So don't be surprised if you do receive a request for more information or more specifics around your application should it come from anyone on the committee. So then once we've determined all that, gotten any questions out of the way from any of the grant applicants, we will then have evaluation processes that take place as a committee, and we will review, we will score, and we will make recommendations to the foundation as relates to approving any of the grants that come in, and then grant awards will then be announced at that point. Roth? So as it relates to eligibility, so the foundation, of course, is a charitable organization, and so all applicants must be classified as 501c3 organizations under the IRS code. If there are individuals who are interested in applying for one of the grants, the opportunity is open to individuals as well, but the process will look a little different for individuals. And we'll talk a little bit later on about a fiscal sponsor, but for individuals who may be interested in applying for the grant, we will connect you and I'll explain that a little bit later on, to a fiscal sponsor to support the work, because funding cannot be provided directly to individuals. It must go through a nonprofit organization. So we will provide that information to you here. I think it's a couple slides ahead of us. So things that the grants are not provided for, and this is going to be key in thinking about what it is that you are interested in seeking funding for. So the grants cannot provide funding for endowments, budget shortfalls, any kind of debt retirement or association dues. So keep that in mind. Sectarian religious programming, organizations with discriminatory employment and program practices, direct financial assistance to individuals, or reimbursement for programs or items purchased before the grant is awarded. And that's important to note, and it will come up again later on in the process, is that once the application process is completed and we have identified who we are going to approve for grant funding, any funds spent before awarding of the funding will not be accredited to you under this grant. So you want to be mindful of, if you are working on a project in advance of receiving approval and or receiving the funding, those things cannot be covered under the grants. Ron? So here we are, fiscal sponsors. And so again, particularly for individuals, if you're applying for a grant, we will be connecting you to one of the 4 opportunities here, the YWCA of York, Downtown Inc., Crispus Attucks, or the White Rose Leadership Institute. And all 4 of these entities have agreed to support the work of the Racial Equity Fund. Now, in that process, for those who may have other nonprofit fiscal sponsors, you're welcome to use anyone that you personally may have a connection to. The foundation will be paying up to 5% of the grant awarded for each grant. Who may need a fiscal sponsor, they will pay up to 5%, and through a contract between the foundation and the particular fiscal sponsor. So for example, if it is YWCA, the foundation will contract with the YWCA for 5% for John Doe grants application, and that funding will go through the YWCA. So that means that if you are awarded the grant, then the funding awarded will go to the YWCA for them to manage your funds. As I mentioned earlier, we are not allowed to provide funding directly to individuals. You're also able to choose your own nonprofit, but they will have to go through that contractual process with the foundation to secure those fundings. And then if you do secure your own fiscal sponsor and their fee exceeds the 5% allotted, then that additional cost will have to be paid by the grantee through other funds and other means. So again, the 5% is what the foundation will be paying to the 4 sponsors that are listed on your screen, and or to any other entity that you may choose. But again, anything above the 5% will be the responsibility of the grantee. Ron? So here are some things to be thinking about as the application process opens today, and some of the needs that the application will require. So be thinking about your financial statements, be thinking about if you are an individual and need a fiscal sponsor, who are you using? Are you using someone else outside of the 4 that we mentioned? Your 501c3 letter, be thinking about board of directors list, your staff. All of those pieces will be asked in the application process. So you want to start putting some of those things together so that you're prepared to respond to the application. And in doing so, you want to keep in mind several of the questions we'll talk about, and you'll see here where we will share them. We'll talk a little bit about a summary, defining your plan and use of the funding. And you want to make sure when you complete the application, before you hit submit, take the time to have someone who is not so close to the application review the application to ensure that your story is clear and that your vision is clear of what you want to do, so that will give you a level of comfort that when it does come to the committee, we'll have a clearer understanding of exactly what your vision is, what your goals are, what you see as those barriers that you are working with this project to try to remove. So you want to think about those particular things. Consider having someone outside of the work that you're doing. Take a look at your application and read through your summary and some of the things that are required to ensure that your vision is clear and there is some clarity around expectations, and to be sure that you've met all of the things being asked of you within your application. Ron? So here are some dates to remember. The grant cycle certainly opens today. All applications are due by October 8th, and the awards will be announced on December 13th. So those are important pieces to really recall along the way. And we will probably be sending out, or you will see on the website, reminders for those timelines, but you do want to mark down these dates. They are important dates, and we would hate for you to miss any of these important dates, and therefore would leave you outside of the window of opportunity. Well, so grant reporting, and as a part of the grants application process, most certainly there are reports that are required along the way. And there are going to be two phases of reporting that's allowed along the way for this process. And one is going to be like a midterm. And most grants are typically a year-long process. However, you may be applying for something that's a one-time event. So it just depends on what type of application you are submitting. But in most cases, we're looking at a year-long timeline. And so within that year-long timeline, there will be a midterm report that will be available to you to present to the committee, and not so much to check to sort of see what you're doing, but also the midterm report is going to provide you with an opportunity for you to take a look at the work that you've been doing thus far to determine whether you are meeting the needs of the approved grant that you were given, and make sure that you are essentially dotting your I's and crossing your T's, and also provides an opportunity for you to reach out for any additional questions or supports, or if you are having some challenges meeting those expectations, you can reach out to the committee and we'd be happy to reconnect with you to maybe take a look at some things as well. And then foundation staff will also be available in this process as well to support you. So the midterm reporting is really not a place to say, you know, one more piece of paper you have to do, but it really is an opportunity, particularly for first-time grantees, to be able to take a look at their work, reevaluate, determine if they're really meeting the needs of the application that they provided to us, and are they meeting the needs of the expectations based on the questions and your responses in the application, knowing that there will be a final report at the end of your project that will be due, and that will be taking a look at outcomes specifically. And outcomes are important because we want you to really be thinking about, when you are applying, what is your end goal? What is your purpose? Not just I have this great idea, but really taking a look at what it is you want to really achieve, and are you designing a program to actually do that? So a couple of questions that will be asked in your final report is, did you achieve what you wanted to achieve? And if not, what were some of the obstacles that you encountered along the way? Describe with details how you would define your positive impact on diverse communities who have participated in your service and or program. And then share with us one reflection or a lesson learned along the way. So those are some very specific questions. And if you keep those in mind while you're doing the application process, being able to respond to the questions in the final report, you'll find a little bit easier. Rob?
Lisa, sorry to interrupt. I do just want to answer one question that came in through the chat. Regarding the October 8th date, the deadline is 11:59 p.m. on October 8th. So you have up until then, and if you have any other issues like submitting it, I just ask that you please just send me an email, but it is 11:59 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. You may advance the slide. So we're going to take a quick walk through the next 2 or 3 slides through the questions that the application is really asking. So the first section is really just an introduction and asking you for a brief history of your mission and vision of your organization or your group, and share with us in 1,000 words or less. Second phase is just summarizing your grant request. What is it that you really are seeking to do with this grant, and how do you frame that in a message that allows the committee to see your heart and vision in the work that you intend to do? Share with us what your grant intends to achieve. What are your goals? What are your highlights? And be able to identify those and describe them for us so that we can clearly see and make the connections as well. Next slide. How will you measure your achievement? And this is important, again, in the development process, taking a look at what are your end goals and how do you plan to achieve them? And if you can identify those goals, how you get to those outcomes, then you will easily be able to answer how you're going to measure your achievement. So keep that in mind. Are you partnering or collaborating with any other organizations? This is also key as well in the work that you're doing. And it's not a requirement that you partner and collaborate, but it's also enhances the work that you're doing as well. Taking a look at your budget and defining how you intend to use the fundings that you are requesting, and you're laying it out for us to be able to see how you're connecting the dots and utilizing the funding being provided. Next slide, please. We will also be looking for a name of board members and identifying the makeup of your board, if you would, for us, please, so we can have a sense of who your organization is and some of the work that may have been going into the particular project that you're applying for. The number of staff who will be needed to complete the work that you're doing, paid and or volunteer. So anyone who is working within your program, no matter what their role is, no matter if they're receiving pay or not, should be identified within the application. Next slide, please. Number of program staff who are involved in the program, again, identifying according to status as well. And that the reason why we have those 2 questions listed that way is we really want to take a look at, because the impact of the Racial Equity Fund is really to take a look at impacting communities of color. And so we just want to have a way to be able to track and take a look and ensure that we are meeting the needs of diverse communities. Identify the number of people you plan to serve with the work you're doing, and identify the number of people of color you intend to serve, and those numbers may be the same or they may be different. Next slide. And then lastly, here's a copy of the evaluation tool. And this is the tool that we will be using as the committee to review the applications and score them and make our final determinations as to who we'd like to recommend to the foundation to be approved. And in that process, all applications will come to the committee that we introduced to you earlier on, except with the inclusion of Jamil Alexander, who was not able to be here today, and Mr. Timothy Warfield. We will be collectively reviewing each application. We will be scoring the application. We will reach out to you with any questions that we may have within that window of time, and get those responses to make our final determinations. And then all final determinations for grant approval process will be made by this committee, and then they will be forwarded to the foundation's board for final approval. And Roth, were there any questions? Because it's the end of my slides. Were there any questions specific to the information I shared that we could maybe respond to before we move into the next section?
Yes, we do have 2 questions in the chat. One is, could we define the Secretary of Religious Programs, and does that exclude churches? It does not exclude churches to say. We have funded churches in the past, but Jane, could I ask you to elaborate on that?
I'm happy to do that.
I'm going to ask Lisa too. Yeah, go ahead.
This is Lisa Levin, and I head up the grant programs at the Community Foundation. So by all means, as long as an organization like a church, as long as its programs are open to all and that the programs are designed so that everybody would be welcome at those programs, then we can fund them. If they are only for an exclusive population, in that case, we are not able to fund them. Any further questions about that? If so, just please put it in the chat.
Thank you, Lisa. And we have another question. If we are partnering with another organization, should we submit jointly? So answering question number 1 together, or just add that information under the collaboration question. So I think for submitting jointly, you would have to select one organization to apply in the system. There is opportunities through the system to work on an application together, similar to Google Drive and Google Docs. And we can also explain that as well. As for that, then you can answer question number 1 together. I would say for adding in information about the collaboration, definitely underneath the collaborative question, explaining more of what the organization and what you guys are both doing together is probably best. Lisa, do you agree?
Yes, I 100% agree. You said exactly what I was thinking. I don't believe there's a need to do multiple applications for one program. Just identify that in the primary organization, and one of those organizations should be the one to take the lead to submit the application, but include that information under the collaborative question, if you would, please.
We have another question. Do grant-funded programs or projects have to be physically located in York County? Or would a program in Harrisburg that serves the broader central PA area be eligible? So for that one, we do fund programs in York County, and so it has to be York County specific. We had funded organizations who worked in other counties who had programs specifically in York County. So that's the difference. It cannot be for another county. It has to be serving the individuals in York County itself. Is that correct?
I'd like to just elaborate on that for a moment. Roth is spot on with that. So that if your program serves, let's say, a 5-county region in South Central Pennsylvania that includes York County, you can only apply for that part of the program that serves York County. So if it's a $25,000 program and 1/5 of that is going towards York County, then you could apply for that 1/5 that serves this county exclusively. You don't have to be actually physically located in York, as long as you can make the case that your program is going to make a difference here in York County.
Thank you, Lisa. At this time, I do not see any other questions.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for your time. Please, again, feel free to reach out to us via the email provided for you in the PowerPoint. Again, the PowerPoint will be available to you on the website. And if you have any other questions, we'll be happy to take those via the email. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Roth to talk to you a little bit about the process of applying.
So thank you, Lisa. Hello, everyone. You heard my voice a couple of times already, but my name is Roth Prep. I'm the Grants Program Associate at YCCF. At YCCF, I support our environmental and small field of interest funds. I oversee our community grant program, but most importantly for today, I also manage our online grant system, Found It. So Found It is where you'll be able to start your application. You'll also be able to see documents related to grant awards and to fill out any interim or post-grant reports. So before we begin, I just want to cover some additional resources that are located on our website. So there is a lot of materials online to help you out throughout this process. In order to access these, you first have to go to yccf.org, grant seekers, and then to applicant resources. There is documents that shows a tutorial on how to get onto the online grant system. So just in case for today, this is recorded, so you'll be able to view this again. But if you need to see it documented out, it is on there as well. There is copies of the grant application, the scoring sheets, and a budget template that you can use. It is recommended that even if you don't choose to use the budget template, that you take a look at it to see what information a good budget should include. There is also tips on how to write a good grant proposal. I also want to share that there is a page specifically designated for the Racial Equity Fund. So again, that is on yccf.org, grant seekers, then to grant programs, and then to Racial Equity Fund. Okay, so first, now I will walk you through the online grant system found in, and I'll show you how to get there. So first you have to go to yccf.org. And then you'll see this bar at the top of the page. You will want to click on Grant Login. And once you do so, it should take you to this page. So if you have applied before to YCCF, you may already have an account. If so, type in your username and password and click Login. Now, if this is your first time you or your organization is applying to YCCF, you must click Create New Account. Creating a new account is a multi-step process, with the first section collecting organization information, the second section collecting user information, and sections 3 and 4 collecting executive officer information. It is very important to note that the email address entered in the email/username field will become your username in the system. Please note that you should you need to navigate to a previous section in the registration process, you must use the previous button at the bottom of each section for the information entered in the registration fields to remain intact. If you attempt to navigate to a previous section by using the browser's back button, you will lose all registration information entered. Also, since all of our communications about the grant award goes out through this system, be sure when applying online to test the email system. After you complete the registration process, it will ask you to do so. We've had applicants who skipped this step and didn't understand why they weren't hearing from us in the past. And we later found out that it was being sent to their spam and junk folders. So please be sure to check that email, that email is going to your direct inbox. If you forget your password, you can click Forget Your Password, and it'll email yourself a reset link. As a reminder, sometimes the reset link also goes to spam and junk too. And if you're not sure overall, please reach out to me. My information is on this site as well. So you can reach out via email or through our phone. But once you're able to log in, you'll be taken to this portal. And this is your Applicant Dashboard. So this will show other information about reports and award letters. But most importantly, this is how you will be able to apply to YCCF. So there is an apply button at the top of this page. And when you click on apply, it will take you to a page to view all of our grant opportunities and to start your application. So again, here it says accepting applications from 8/30/2021 to October 8th, 2021. So there you'll be able to click apply and begin your application. And if there's any questions to speak, or if you would like to speak to a committee member, again, we remind you to please reach out to them through their email address here. And again, if you're having any technical assistance questions about how to create an account and how to get onto the online system, please reach out to me. Thank you. Okay.
Jane, would you like to wrap us up?
Sure. Listen, and I haven't seen any other questions. So there may be, once you start the process, there may be questions, and we encourage you to reach out to Roth or the committee members. And again, I'm just so grateful for your interest in this fund. I agree with all the committee members that this is a great opportunity to make a real difference in our community. And it's really just the beginning. We're going to learn a lot and continue to grow. So we are still seeking donations to the fund. We've already raised some additional money, and so stay tuned. We'll want this to continue beyond just this year, and it will. So thank you so much. And appreciate your time today. Thanks to all the committee members, Lisa, and everyone for helping us get here, and Roth and Sarah and Lisa for their help. Have a good day.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good day.
Good day.